You're ready.
My name is Ben Gilbert.
My name is Owen Pinkerman.
My name is Zachary Garrison.
My name is Chase Edwards. Our topic is on immigration, and we're now open for questions.
Why doesn't one of you talk about what immigration is? Just define immigration for us.
Immigration is leaving your country and coming to another one.
Well, it depends on the spelling. If it's IMM, that is someone coming to your country. If it's EMM, it's someone leaving the country.
And of course you have movement in between other countries and in between people groups in a certain country.
Is this a topic that's of interest to you? Do you know anyone that's immigrated either to another country or came into our country?
Yes, sir. Actually, my sister's, I guess, fiance now is actually coming over here for a job from Australia to coach for Marshall University. So they're trying to get his visa and green card and everything figured out so they can get their life started together.
Awesome.
We have a few foreign exchange students here, and one of them, his name is Kevin, and he's in the orchestra with me. I'm also in the orchestra, and he's become one of my really good friends. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, what country was that?
China.
China.
Yes.
Yes, and I know several scouts that have come over from Syria and are in scouting here in Lexington.
Well, we know that it was a hot topic during the debate as far as the idea of immigration as well as other things. Ben, do you have an opinion on? Can you give me the pros and cons that you see to immigration?
Well, there is definitely an economic benefit for immigrants coming to the country. They take jobs and they usually are skilled, and when they are, it helps the country grow. However, there are cons always to the situation, and I would definitely say that there's a lot of nativism that goes on. It's happened in the past, and it definitely is happening today, as far as like differences in political views and differences in religious views.
Sometimes the positive of the immigrants taking these good jobs is also a negative, because if an immigrant is taking a job, that means someone from here can't have that job. So that's sort of both a positive and a negative in and of itself.
Guys, walk us through the current U.S. immigration policy, and then as a follow-up to that, talk a little bit about what you perceive to be some of the pros and some of the cons of that policy.
So you have to be a 5-year resident in order to qualify for becoming like a citizen. But just for immigration, there are a whole lot of different ways that you can immigrate to the U.S. for different things, such as like a workplace visa, a business visa, even things like human trafficking victims visas. Like if you've been a victim of human trafficking, you can actually get a visa for that. And so like this, just a huge list of visas that you can get. You want to talk about some of the different kinds of visas?
There are J1 visas for foreign exchange students, B1 and B2 visas. The B1 is for business, if you're coming on business. B2 is a vacation business. There is the common visa, which is the BCC, and a B1 and a B2 is what you actually need to come it's like a green card. So to come into the country, you need to have a BCC, and to work, you need to have a B1. And then to travel around the country and vacation, you need a B2. And BCCs are valid for 10 years. Most of visas are valid for about 10 years. For children, it's usually longer. It's usually longer for them. Members of NATO and internal organizations like NAFTA, the UN, they get their own visas, which is a G1 through a G5 and a NATO visa. A1 and A2 visas are for foreign military presences, which are like ambassadors and MP. An L1 visa is an intra-company transfer visa. So if your company is like headed in, let's say, the UK, and there's a division, and they transfer you to the American division, you have to get an L1 visa to work there. And usually the L1, most of these visas are temporary residence. The permanent residence process is a lot longer. You don't really have a visa for that.
Yes, and the United States Customs and Immigration Services handles all that, the citizenship process.
Are there limitations on immigration?
They only have a certain amount they'll give out for each different visa has like a set amount that they can give out. So, yeah.
They give about 50,000 DCC visas a year, which is the green card lottery.
It's just one of the ones.
What are some of your other limitations?
Like some of them have requirements for them, obviously, like a highly skilled worker. They have to qualify as a highly skilled worker, not just someone that can do a job, you know. So there are like tests and stuff that they'll have to do in order to qualify for certain ones. And then, you know, like there's the marriage one, like if you're married to someone who is a U.S. citizen or whatever, that can qualify you too. But like, you know, in order to apply for that visa, you do have to be married to someone who is a U.S. citizen and stuff like that.
Are there any restrictions on like country of origin? Do we not take people from certain areas, or are we open to applicants from anywhere?
I think we're open to applicants from anywhere, but the main thing they look at is like is your job, your education level, how like war torn your area is. Those are like three of the main things that they look at.
Does this sort of stuff that we're talking about, does this apply to refugees as well as immigrants, or is that a different process as far as the United States accepting refugees?
It definitely does apply, but there is a difference between a migrant and a refugee. A migrant or an immigrant is somebody who's moving because they want to. You know, they want to have a better life for their family, more opportunities. A refugee is someone who is moving because it's not their choice. So, for example, you have the Syrian refugee crisis. They're moving from that area because it's, you know, it's dangerous there.
On that same topic, how should the U.S. handle the current refugees?
Well, I mean, that really depends on who you're asking, because if you ask Trump, like, he believes that we should not accept anything for a certain amount of time until we can work out a better process, because he doesn't think the process we have right now is working very well. So he thinks that we should wait, not take anyone in so that we don't make mistakes, come up with a good process, and then let people in. But then, you know, there are other people like Hillary Clinton believed that we should just keep taking them in the process we are, because she doesn't think that it's right to allow people to deny people just because our process isn't good enough yet. And so that really just depends on who you're asking.
And that's been a huge debate with this last election that we've had, because traditionally the U.S. has adopted a policy where, you know, refugees, again, it's not their choice to come here to your country, but when they're here, it's like, you know, if you send them away back to their own country, they will die. Like they're risking death. And so that's a big consideration that we have to take. And that's kind of been ignored in some ways. Like people don't believe it, but, you know, that's definitely been a topic of interest.
Is there precedent to President-elect Trump's stand on immigration and limiting refugees and taking more time to review that?
I think there is, because there has been a noticeably large, like in not just in this specific situation, but in all like refugee situations, there has been a significant increase of crime among those refugees for people that when they don't check it. Like for instance, I think it's Denmark has a policy of allowing any refugees who want to can come pretty much without any question, and their crime rate among people of Syrian descent and stuff has like quadrupled over the past like 5 or 6 years because of that, and that's because they're not checking who the people are that they're letting in. They're just letting anyone in. So I think that is important to check over people and not just take every person in before you let them.
You're saying with the precedents, I mean, we've had a large immigration patterns in the past, especially with the 20th century. we had a lot of people coming, from Ellis Island, from southern and eastern Europe, and they've definitely had to pay attention to that, because they did have kind of with the struggle against terrorism, but it wasn't as big as it is now. So it's definitely changed, but that is still there is precedence for that.
Okay.
All right, so let's put you guys on the hot seat a little bit. Rising scholars and noblemen, some of the big brains of LCA. What's your thought on immigration? What are your opinions?
Like illegal immigration in the United States.
Just in general, immigration as it works as a legal process, and then also illegal immigration as it's seen by our country.
I personally think in the United States, immigration, like legal immigration, is a good thing. That we should have legal immigration, but a lot of the illegal immigration a lot of it needs to be tight, like more controlled, because there's 11 or 12 million
Yeah, 11.
illegal immigrants in the United States right now, and they're completely undocumented. Like they just come in. So I mean, I personally think that we need to have tighter regulations on that.
I kind of agree with Jace. I feel like we need to tighten down the illegal immigration, but for legal immigration, I totally agree. Like that could be a huge boost to our economy. Like they come in and for the lazy Americans that want to sit at home and benefit off the government, they can come in and take those jobs and help boost the economy.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere that if every country in the world took off its restrictions to immigration, that they would double the GDP from each the global economy, would just definitely increase. So I mean, there's positives to it, but as far as illegal immigration within the U.S. where we are now, I feel like we should not let illegal immigrants come in, and I'm perfectly fine with having a process to do it. Even though it may be long and tedious, it's worth it. So we don't have an internal risk.
What do you guys think is the solution then? I mean, for some of these 11 million undocumented immigrants, how do we remedy that situation, and how do we stop it from getting to 15 million a few years from now?
Well, obviously we need to get rid of some of the, like what Donald Trump says, deport some of them. But I believe myself that we should extend citizenship to the hard-working ones that come here for a job to escape, because Mexico is the largest contributor of illegal immigrants because it's to the south of us and the country's in turmoil right now. We should extend citizenship to the Mexican immigrants that come here to learn, to learn and get a job and to contribute and make their financial situation better. But the ones that come here and just don't do anything, they don't pay their taxes, they just kind of leech, I think we should get rid of a bunch of those.
I think we should definitely at least document them, the ones that we have, and I agree with Donald Trump's stance of if they commit a crime and they're an illegal immigrant, they should be deported. Because if they're committing crimes and stuff, then they're not helping the economy at all, and I don't think we should have to deal with that. But even if they are hardworking and stuff, I agree with him that we should give them citizenship so that they'll be paying all the correct taxes and stuff, and then they can also, be getting a good job and all that.
I mean, do you think that? Sorry. Do you think that with those 11 million, how do you get them to identify? You know what I mean? I mean, these people are all over the place. They may be our neighbors. They may be working at various places where we go and patronize. What's the process to actually get them to say, "Hey, I'm illegal. I'm a hardworking one that I want to sign up to be a citizen," and I mean, how do we get them? Practically speaking, how do we get them to do that?
Well, practically, the solution Donald Trump said was stop and frisk, that he wants us to stop people and check for ID. But that's a really big waste of resources, because a lot of the times you'll be stopping people that aren't illegal immigrants, and then what do you do then? You just wasted time.
I feel like there should be government institutions, and I believe there are, that actually go in with businesses, and they'll kind of do a search, and they'll look and see, where your papers kind of thing. And so if this is a really big topic as it is, and we're going to push to do it, and push to really find out who's in and who's not, then that would be the way you would do it.
You know, someone commented that that America's immigration problem is an issue, is really a relationship issue between Mexico and the U.S. Do you guys know what the makeup of immigrants are today? Like, how many immigrants, if you look at our immigration or our immigrant population, you know, how many of them are Mexican versus any other country? What does an immigrant look like, I guess, would be maybe a way of asking that question. Okay, we'll move along.
Sure.
So let's go on that. Let's go on that premise then that that maybe this is a relationship issue between America and the U.S. What are your thoughts about that in general? And if you want to throw in the wall situation, feel free.
You mean America and Mexico?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. What do you think of the relationship between America and Mexico?
It's pretty bad right now because I think more of it's not the problem with the relationship between the two countries. I think it's more the problem that Mexico is very unstable right now. And the cartels are almost as big as the government, and they're directly competing and killing government workers. But the wall doesn't help the relationship between Mexico and America because Trump is, especially when he said he's going to make Mexico pay for it through, I think he said like tariffs.
Yeah.
Tariffs and trade restrictions are going to be the main way that he makes them pay for it. I don't think that's really going to help the relationship at all.
Yeah, the Mexican president himself commented on it and said that he was not going to pay for it and was pretty angry about it. So that's obviously showing that that's not going to help relations at all.
What do you think we could do to help Mexico? I mean, what would be? Owen, do you have any idea of what we could offer someone? Maybe if we could help Mexico with their economy somehow.
I actually think that we could, if we offered them like hard workers like visas to come over here for a little bit and like, you know, maybe we can pick up our trade with Mexico, and we could, you know, like shoot, what was it? It was like something between Canada, the U.S. and Mexico.
NAFTA.
And NAFTA. If we could like, I don't know, kind of like guess, kind of build on that, and to where we can get involved back with Mexico and with Canada, then that would greatly benefit all countries.
Talk to us a little bit about the deportation process, and more specifically, does it work and is it flawed? And what I mean by that is if a illegal immigrant is deported back to their home country, does that, in some cases, allow them to be free to come and illegally enter our country again? And I think one of you had made the comment about if an illegal immigrant is caught in an act of crime, rather than going through due process here in the United States, they would be deported to their country of origin, which could potentially be problematic. You know, they go through due process here, and there's punishment to meet the crime, maybe not so much in their home country. So maybe talk through that a little bit for us.
There's definitely been cases of, especially in the southern states, where Mexican drug lords have been deported back to Mexico, but because the Mexican justice system and their government is really weak right now, they've just come right back and resumed operation. I don't remember the exact case, but there was a drug lord based in Chicago that they deported 7 times. Because if you aren't the due process, the system, if you're not a legal resident, they can't put you through that. If you're not here, officially they have to send you back to your own country to be put through their justice system.
Is that a good policy or a bad policy?
I'd say it's good in certain cases and bad with the Mexico relation case because the government's so weak over there, they can't really prosecute anybody. But in terms of an Australian worker and a European, they have pretty solid justice systems, so I think it would probably be better to send them back over there because they're still a permanent citizen of them. And we can't prosecute other citizens of different countries unless they're in our system.
I think it makes sense. You know, more stable government. You want to have their citizen tried in their country, same way as we want our citizens tried in our country.
what's the current illegal